Hi, it's Tony, and on this episode of the Small Interview Project, I'll be talking to Jeremy Watson from Alexander Watson Energy Efficiency. Today in the Small Interview Project, I'm with Jeremy Watson from Alexander Watson. How are you today, Jeremy?
Fantastic, thanks, Tony.
Alexander Watson, I can see a line on you. Tell me, who's Alexander Watson and what do you do?
We are a one-stop energy efficiency shop.
Okay.
We specialise in giving energy efficiency advice for existing buildings,
right,
and then coordinating the retrofit work. So homes that use a lot of energy or have issues with comfort are great clients for us. We do anything from insulation to solar panels, draft proofing work, curtains and blinds.
Okay.
It's really a one-stop shop.
Just for homes or for commercial as well?
Any type of existing building, so residential and commercial.
Right, okay. Excellent. Why did you go into business?
I've grown up in a family business,
okay,
and my grandfather was self-employed, my father was self-employed. Seemed to be a natural progression for myself, who was never really fit into the family model to become an employee, so I didn't really want to be working for anyone else.
Okay.
So it was always the dream to go out and set up my own business and work for myself.
Okay, and how long have you been working for yourself for?
I worked in the family business for the last 8 years,
right,
and I've been out by myself in my own company for the last 2.
Oh, okay. So, all right, well, I guess you probably had a bit of time to think about this one, but if you had your time over again, especially with Alexander Watson, what would you change?
I would have got people in to help me a lot sooner than what I did. A frustration that always pops up in business is that you try and do as many things yourself as possible, trying to avoid overheads coming in, and you think you're going to save money that way. If I had my time again, I would get people in to help me, because it's been a real key to our success in getting great people in to help us do what we do, so I can focus on what the business does best and they can do what they do best. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what's been your biggest challenge so far then in business? Finding time to work on the business.
Okay.
One of the I've been really fortunate that the idea I had with the business as a one-stop energy shop is that it worked really, really well, and clients really responded well to it. The downside to that is that if you don't have processes and systems and people in place to deal with that, you find yourself that you're chasing
trying to do everything.
Yeah, basically running around trying to do absolutely everything, and you end up being overwhelmed. And you know you've got to be doing all these things, but struggling to find the time to work on the business is a real challenge.
And I suppose the outcome of that is that you actually end up neglecting the revenue raising areas.
Exactly right. You're either doing two things. You're either finding sales or satisfying sales. So if you're doing all the work chasing sales, well then you're not satisfying the existing ones. And if you're looking after the existing ones, well you're not going out there finding them. So it's a vicious circle. Absolutely, absolutely. You just mentioned this in your previous answer, but how do you balance working on versus in your business? I hired a business coach. It's the best thing I ever did was get a coach, because you just get stuck. If you're putting it down to yourself, regardless of how disciplined you are, I consider myself to be a reasonably well-disciplined person.
Sure.
But when things get busy at work, you just tend to focus on what you think is the most important part. To have a third party come in and give you that real wake-up call and force you to go and work on really what's most important in the bigger picture has been the absolute godsend for me in making sure that I get dedicated time to work on the business.
And is that the main the benefit, just being that it actually forces you on a regular basis to actually do that important business stuff?
Look, any person in business will know basic things about how, and they'll be able to identify things within their sales processes or the way they do things with their employees.
You'd hope so.
They should know how to do those things. So you're not exactly finding out anything new when you get a business coach, but finding the time and having someone that's there as a bit of a voice of reason, holding you accountable to those things is the most important thing I've found.
Sure. Okay. My last question for you is, what advice would you have for potential newbies to business? Being someone who's grown up in family businesses of different sort of degrees and now in your own business, what would you suggest to somebody who's out there about to start up?
Know your customer would be my biggest thing. I learnt this from my grandfather, who had an insurance agency out in regional New South Wales. His best customer was an ethnic farmer that didn't want to do any of the hard work around insurance. He just wanted to make sure that whenever something went wrong, he'd be covered. They were cashed up people, so money wasn't exactly an issue, and they'd be incredibly loyal as well, so they'd send their family in. But Pop knew his customers incredibly well, and the way he did that was get out and get to know them. So the business was the last thing that came along. Knowing their story, developing the relationship was the most important part. I've used that in our business, and I know our customer.
So how do you apply
very
that
well.
to your business then?
Absolutely. We know our customer incredibly well.
Right.
A person in Canberra that's got a cold house
Yep.
that works in a high income capacity, so there's a fair bit of income in the home, but they live in a home that isn't anywhere near as comfortable as it could be.
Yep.
Canberra's a really cold place, but your house doesn't have to be, but a lot of the houses here are.
Okay.
The most targeted we've been at, the most successful we've been with that is with our coldest house in Canberra competition.
Okay, what's that?
That's a competition, as the name suggests, to find Canberra's coldest house.
Oh, I thought it might be. How does it work? Give me
It's a bit of a giveaway. So
give it a plug.
clients enter their homes, and they get a free thermal assessment with our thermal imaging camera done of their home,
Okay.
which then identifies how they can be improving their home. Because the whole idea of the competition is we want to promote that Canberra's cold, but your house doesn't have to be.
Yep.
And the idea of that is clients come to us and say, hey, I've got a really cold house,
Yep.
and I want you to help me. So it's been a really perfect way, I should say, of having our ideal customers come to us, because they're basically hunting us down to
Okay.
instead of us having to chase them. So it's been a
So what do they win, and how do they enter? Give yourself a plug.
I'll give myself. So they enter at coldesthouseInCanberra.com.
Right.
The prize is worth up to $20,000. Includes a major overhaul of their energy efficiency.
Okay.
So insulation, solar panels, draft proofing work,
Yep.
LED downlights, an LED skylight as well. Some double glazing in there. So it's
Comprehensive
it's
price.
a
Yep.
pretty comprehensive price.
Yep.
It'll make sure that they're not whinging about being cold anymore. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And how do you pick the winner?
So the winner's going to be picked by a public vote. But what we do to start with is we get the people to enter.
Yep.
We do an assessment of their home,
Yep.
but we want to have a bit of fun with it as well. So they're going to be we want them to be a bit creative and tell us why their house is the coldest in Canberra.
Okay.
We let them take a bit of liberty with that.
Sure.
And for example, we've had one client tell us that she doesn't let the dogs lift the windows because they're afraid their tongue will stick to them. So that's that's one of our favourite. Another client saves electricity on her fridge because she leaves the door open because she thinks the house is less than 4 degrees inside. So we let them have a bit of fun with that.
Yep.
Whoever's the most creative with their entry and whoever has been identified as a great candidate for a cold house from our assessment
Yep.
will get picked as a finalist. We're going to choose 5 finalists,
Okay.
and they'll go up online in a public vote, and it's then up to those people then to go and promote themselves as much as possible, and whoever gets the most votes will become the coldest house in Canberra for 2013.
Sounds like a fun promotion, and also a good one to actually target your ideal client as well. So.
Well, it's picked it out so well.
Yeah.
We've been astounded with the response, and the people that have been coming back in
Sure.
sit bang on our key demographic, and the places where we've advertised it also, and the means of entry. Say, for example, using an online entry form.
Yes.
Specifically targets someone that's regularly in contact with a computer, which traditionally in Canberra
Yeah.
is someone sitting in an office job. So an office worker with a cold house.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Perfect.
That's our bang on client.
Definitely. Okay, Jeremy, look, good luck with the competition, and thank you for taking part in the small interview project.
Thanks for having me.
No worries.